So when I look at public safety, of course, one of the dynamics I would like to see shift is that it moves from public safety to community safety. We're finding that police cannot do everything, that community safety is everybody's safety.
I'm Andrea Hernandez, and you're listening to Our Stories, Our World. This podcast series, led by young people like me, features Chicago stories about public health, public safety, and public education. Each episode uses the power of a single personal photo to spark a conversation about what matters to our guests. The theme of this episode is public safety. I've known retired Chicago police officer Vanessa Westley since I joined the Chicago Police Department Youth District Advisory Council 3 years ago. So I wasn't surprised when I saw the photos she wanted to talk about for this podcast. In fact, I was in the room when it was taken.
I am retired officer Vanessa Westley, program director and training coordinator for the Office of Restorative Justice Strategies for the Chicago Police Department. I am a happy 55 years old. Currently, I am a trainer. I'm a facilitator. I'm a restorative justice practitioner, and I am enjoying or trying to enjoy my life post CPD. I'm still a youth and community advocate. I believe in the power of youth voice. I still stay close to some of the work the YDAC, Youth District Advisory Committee, is doing. So YDAC is the acronym for Youth District Advisory Committee. The YDAC is the third component of a process called Bridging the Divide that we co-created with several community organizations, one being the YMCA back in 2014. The necessity of the Bridging the Divide process was we had to find a way for young people to be able to have creative and safe and brave conversations with officers that work in their districts. So what's amazing about this picture? That was our first leadership summit or leadership training. And the purpose of the whole leadership aspect was to give young people the confidence and the skill set that they need to sit at tables with adults. And that particular picture exemplifies for me that it can happen. Young people that I found thought that their voices were drowned in a sea of other voices oftentimes. And that picture shows an adult first, a police officer, that second, actually listening to the voices of young people. When I look at it as a way, first of all, it's the correct way to problem solve. This officer is not talking at these young people because look at the body language of the young people. They're engaged. They're not sitting back. They're leaning in. The officer's leaning in. So this is a conversation that is first of all, it's positive. It looks like it's progressive. And then everybody is equal because they're seated. But you see that they are talking at eye level. And when we talk about change, we have to talk about everybody's role in change. We have to talk about everybody's value in change, from the youngest to the oldest. So when I look at this photo and I look at it, I don't know why that has changed. It shows that all three of these individuals are open to work together to make the changes they want to see. So when I look at public safety, of course, one of the dynamics I would like to see shift is that it moves from public safety to community safety. And there's the reason why. When you say public safety, it assumes and it's usually interpreted what systems or police do. We're finding that police cannot do everything, community safety. It's everybody's safety, which goes back to how you look at police officers. If you look at police officers as a systemic or a system of people that are outside other community members, then of course you will gravitate to think that they have a job to do, they have a service to perform. But when you look at community safety, you realize that in order for neighborhoods to be safe, that it's the contribution of everybody who's in that neighborhood. Whether you work, sleep, go to school, whatever, live in that community, you have a portion to contribute. You are a shareholder, if you will. So, given that, when I look at this picture, change comes by one conversation at a time. And this picture doesn't look like the officer is answering or taking the lead or assumed to be the expert. If I was to put a caption under this picture, it would be all voices are valued, all voices are important, all voices are necessary to make the changes that we need to see in our neighborhoods. Most youth programs are pre-created based on what the adults would like to see happen, but very rarely engage young people. So YDAC was where after we have cleared the air about things that was wrong, relationships that were broken between young people and police, we've sat down and we agreed on what issues that we would like to address together, and the YDAC became the place of implementation. So this picture is the reminder of that we were intentionally building the skills and the confidence of young people. So with the officers, it was a refreshing. So sometimes you have to understand that you don't know what you don't know. The charge that officers receive to interact and not interact with young people more so than engage young people, it became very mundane and routine. You knew what the summer was going to be like. You were going to have the basketball. You were going to have a cookout. And our department and law enforcement across the country is still very event oriented. When you design an engagement process such as this conversation, that means not only are you going to be talking, but you're talking with purpose. The officers that participated that year were really refreshed. They were like, wow, this is something. This really works. Yeah, we should do more of this. Some of them was like, okay, this is too much. But we quickly convinced them that if you want something different, you got to do something different. And at the time, we were also reeling from some very tragic events. And we had to admit, we can't change this as a system. We have to change it as a community. So I would say the majority of those officers were pleased. They were refreshed. They began to see that they could do things differently and welcomed the different ways that we were engaging. If I look at this picture, it's like paradigm shifted. And when your paradigm or your way of thinking is shifted, now the culture shifts. So we don't want any more programs where we just design. We want programs where we ask the community, especially the community youth, what is it that you need? What will make you thrive? And let's work together to see that happen. We cannot continue to do things to youth and emerging adults, but you have to do things with them, which really broadened my scope as a law enforcement officer relative to the community that I serve. I can't do stuff to the community. I have to do stuff with the community. And I got to put in here, I am so uber proud of you all. At the level that you are now, in the places and tables that you sit at, and your authentic selves show up.
Thank you. Honestly, if it wasn't for YDAC, I don't know where I would have been.
Well, thank you for holding it up, and thank you for bringing other folks along, because now you are the example, you're the teacher, and we appreciate you for that.
This has been Our Stories, Our World, a limited podcast series created by Chicago youth. Our Stories, Our World is brought to you by Public Narrative and APicture'sWorth, two nonprofits focused on community building and narrative change. Thanks to Vanessa Westley for sharing her story, and to our story gatherer Andrea Hernandez for interviewing and hosting. Our music was created by Chicago artist Malky. Our podcast artwork is by Dan McDonald Studios. Our audio producer is Brooklyn's own Samantha Gatzik. The executive producers of Our Stories, Our World are Alyssa Yancey and Mareva Lindo. That's me. Find our other episodes and detailed notes at APicture'sWorth.org/public narrative. If you enjoyed this episode, we hope you'll share it, subscribe, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts. Support our work by making a donation at publicnarrative.org/donate. Tune in again in 2 weeks for the next episode of Our Stories, Our World. Thank you for listening.